What's going on, y'all? So look, I'm about to get into a very uncomfortable conversation for some people, but here goes nothing, right? The other day, Orlando Magic big man Jonathan Isaac tore his ACL during a game against the Sacramento Kings. This injury came just days after the 6'11" power forward chose to stand during the national anthem and made the following remarks regarding why he chose to stand. Jonathan Isaac said, "I believe that Black Lives Matter. A lot went into my decision, and part of it is I thought that kneeling or wearing the Black Lives Matter t-shirt doesn't go hand in hand with supporting Black lives," right? He said, "I do believe that Black Lives Matter, but I just felt like it was a decision that I had to make. And I didn't feel like putting that shirt on and kneeling went hand in hand with supporting Black lives," which is true because there are a lot of corporations, I would say, that are pandering to black people and putting Black Lives Matter on something, slapping those words on their company, but they really don't feel those words. You know what I mean? It doesn't really express their true beliefs, but they're just going to put it on there just to make it seem like they're all for the cause when they're really not, right? But nonetheless, let's just get back to what Mr. Isaac said. He said, "I believe that for myself, my life has been supported by gospel, Jesus Christ, and everyone is made in the image of God, and that we all forge through God's glory. Each and every one of us do things that we shouldn't do and say things that we shouldn't say. We hate and dislike things that we shouldn't hate and dislike. And sometimes it gets to a point where we point fingers. Whose evil is worse? And sometimes it comes down to whose evil is most visible. So I felt like I wanted to take a stand. On. We all make mistakes, but I think that the gospel of Jesus Christ is that there's grace for us, and that Jesus came and died for our sins. And that if we all come to an understanding of that, and that God wants to have a relationship with us, that we can get kept all of those things in the world that are messed up and jacked up." I don't know what he's trying to say right there at the end. "I think when you look around, racism isn't the only thing that plagues our society, that plagues our nation, that plagues our world. And I think coming together on that message that we want to get past not only racism, but everything that plagues us as a society, I feel like the answer to that is gospel," right? Now listen, y'all, I want to be very clear when I say this. I will never villainize or condemn a person for not wanting to kneel during the national anthem, right? I will never villainize nobody for choosing to stand up, It's your choice. I know everyone is not built for these battles. I understand that. Everybody is not built for these battles where they will kneel or stand up against oppression. Everybody not built for those wars. However, I will take note of what that person says when they are asked why they chose not to kneel and see where they are coming from with it. I'm going to see where you're coming from with it, right? I want to say this too. I wish a speedy recovery to Jonathan Isaac. I don't wish no harm to be done to this young brother. I wish him nothing but success in the future, right? However, I just want to say this. I don't respect people who use religion as a cop-out not to talk about racism. In those quotes, Jonathan Isaac is minimizing racism, and he's making it seem like it's not really a big deal, Like, he's saying things like, what he say, each and every one of us do things that we shouldn't do and say things that we shouldn't say. We dislike things that we shouldn't hate and dislike, and sometimes it gets to a point where we point fingers. He said we all make mistakes, and he says sometimes it comes down to whose evil is most visible. I'm gonna say this, brother. I don't know. We all do things that we shouldn't do and all of that, brother. I'm not kneeling on nobody's neck and killing a man. I'm not killing a man unjustly. I'm not doing it. Me and my friends are not doing that, brother. I'm not. And that police officer and the other officers, they murdered George Floyd and allowed him to be killed. So it's not like it's to minimize that. It's disrespectful to George Floyd's family and Breonna Taylor's family for that matter as well. So I will never act like, it's not really, he's making it seem like it's really not that big of a deal. Like, he's choosing to make it seem like it's minuscule. And that is something that I don't respect. And he's using religion as a way to do it. Let me be very clear. I'm a God-fearing man, right? I'm a God-fearing man. I'm a Christian man. However, I'm a realist as well. I'm never going to, let's be honest. God wouldn't be cool with racism. God wouldn't see George Floyd and Breonna Taylor and a host of other black people get killed by law enforcement unjustly in America and say, we have bigger concerns other than racism. No, I don't. But you cannot make me believe that the Most High would look at racism as minuscule or try to downplay it in any type of way. And that is what Jonathan Isaac is doing when he's saying this, right? Jonathan Isaac is grouping racism in with all other issues and sins, like we all sin and all that. Brother, I'm not killing nobody, fam. I'm not killing nobody. I'm not out here murdering nobody unjustly. I'm not using prejudices against groups of people to kill them. I'm not doing that. I'm not abusing power and taking people's lives and taking people away from their families, from their children. I'm not out here doing that. And we got to call a spade and not be afraid to say what exactly is going on. We can't be out here trying to make excuses for people, unjust police officers. We can't be making excuses for them and try to give them ways to cop out, or ways to not be held accountable for their actions. And I'm not with what Jonathan Isaac is saying, right? Like for real, when he's saying this, he's acting like he's saying that racism, it's not our only problem in America. Well, duh, brother, duh. But right now, police brutality and the racism and prejudices that lead to it is at the forefront of conversations in America. So we're going to talk about it. We're going to talk about it and we're going to address it. And people are going to oppose it and people are going to protest it. That's just what it is. Whether he agrees with it or not, it's happening in America, right? And like for real, ultimately, with those aforementioned remarks from Mr. Jonathan Isaac, like he is really downplaying the severity of not only police brutality, but he's downplaying the murders of George Floyd and Breonna Taylor. Like, we all do things. Whose evil is worse? Brother, we not, bro. Yeah, we all sin. But again, my people that I know, people that are my friends and my family, we not out here killing, we're not out here killing unarmed black people. We're not killing people due to prejudices that we have against them. Or like, we're not abusing power. So I don't get where he's coming from with this, right? It doesn't make sense to me when he says this. You know what I mean? Like, he's really trying to I'm looking at these I think when we look around, racism that's not the only problem that we have. Of course not, brother. It's a lot of other things going on. But right now, this is the topic of conversation. And we're not going to try to deviate away from it or try to sway people away from it by changing topic. And we have other issues as well. Like, bro, yeah, we got other issues. But God damn it, we're going to talk about what's going on right now with law enforcement who are supposed to protect and serve, killing black people while they're unarmed, while they're no longer a threat to anybody, right? I saw George Floyd not be a threat to a police officer and still have his knee on his neck for 8 minutes until he couldn't breathe anymore. That's not acceptable. I'm never going to be cool with it. I'm not going to make excuses for it. And I'm not going to hide behind my religion or my love for God as a way to cower away from that conversation. And it seems like he's choosing he's choosing religion to cower away from the subject or to try to turn his back away from the subject. You know what I mean? It's and again, he could have said, okay, he believed in God, but when he gets to talking about there are other things plaguing this country and, every one of us sins and all of that, you wouldn't do that to a person who's out here, that killed a child. You wouldn't say that. You wouldn't say we all sin. If you saw a person, if a black person out here killed a child, he wouldn't be saying that same rhetoric. He would be like, oh my God, it's the most vile thing in the world. You know what I mean? But to not want to talk about any race issues, you want to try to use your love of God to get around talking about it. I love God too, brother, wholeheartedly. But I'm going to talk about the real. I'm going to talk about the real. I'm going to talk about it. Racism. I'm going to call it what it is, and I'm going to speak out against it. Even if I love God to the core, just as much as he does. But I'm not going to let racism ride and feel like, let's deviate the conversation away from it. Like, no, bro, I'm not doing that. Right? Also, when he said this, I'm talking to my boy Melvin. I say, Melvin, where is Jonathan Isaac from? Like, Jonathan Isaac, he played for Orlando Magic, but he's also from Florida. Right? And I say he's from Florida. A lot of Florida's population it's a lot of black immigrants in Florida. Now, he looks like a straight, all 100% black American. But I said, let me just look up his ethnicity. I find out that through his maternal grandfather is from Puerto Rico, right? His maternal grandfather is from Puerto Rico. And when I saw that, I said, man, let me talk about a lot of black immigrants in this country. And not all of them are like that. You know, it's black immigrants that ride for the cause. Black immigrants from Africa, from the Caribbean, that ride for the cause of black people, that rise for that are all that speak up against the plight of African American people. They speak up and talk about the plight of African American people in this country. They do. But there are a lot of them, a lot of black Americans that there are a lot of black immigrants that come to this country, and they are so happy and grateful to escape the conditions of where they come from. They are so happy to be in America. They don't want to be seen as troublemakers. They don't want to cause any trouble at all. Thus, they assimilate to the ideologies of white America in order to fit in, right? They don't want to stand out in any type of way at all. They don't want to stand out at all, right? So they go along with whatever they go along with whatever the majority of white America deems as acceptable, and they don't want to be looked at as the enemy. They don't want to be viewed as a people who are trying to buck the system. So they sit quiet and they say to themselves, they say to themselves and their own people, to their children, to their grandchildren, y'all don't concern yourself with the plight of black American people. That don't got nothing to do with y'all. Don't get involved with none of that. Don't fight their battles for them. Don't speak up against nothing. Don't speak up against nothing that they got going on or affecting them. You don't say nothing about what they got going on. That ain't our problem. That's not our issue. We just came over here to enjoy this country. We're not going to say nothing. It does not concern you what is going on with black Americans. There are black immigrants who come over here and take up those ideologies, right? And they don't understand that a lot of times people cannot tell if they're Puerto Rican or Dominican or whatever when simply looking at them. Because guess what? They look like me. They look like my cousin Jamal. They look like my cousin Corey. They look just like each and every one of us. So there could be law enforcement that have no idea that you are Dominican or you're not a black American. You're from Puerto Rico. You're a black Cuban, or you're from whatever, Jamaica or whatever, or somewhere in Africa. Law enforcement does not always know that because you look just like me. And there will be a time where you too can become a victim, or your people can become a victim of police brutality. And at that point, you will want somebody to speak up in support of you or your people. You won't want nobody to turn a blind eye to what's going on with your people. You will want somebody to speak out about it. You will want somebody to ride or champion your cause. If you were, when it happens to you, if it were to happen to one of your people, you will want somebody to champion your cause as well. So yeah, you can say, don't let that concern you. But the police don't know that you're a Dominican when they look at you. They don't know you're a Puerto Rican at all. They think that you're a black American. And there could be times where you could be subject to the same situation that George Floyd was in. You can find yourself in that same exact situation. Now, knock on wood, we hope that never happens, but it very well could. So to turn your back on those issues and say that we won't man up, that's not our problem. That's not, and not even just that too, but the way Jonathan Isaac dismissed it as if like, it's bigger issues in America. It's other issues that's going on. You're not going to say that then when it's affecting you or your family. When it's your loved ones that are being affected by those things, you're not going to say, we got bigger issues in America. We got bigger fish to fry. Hell no. You're going to be speaking up, and you're going to speak out, and you're going to want somebody to ride for you and your people, just like black Americans are wanting other black people and everybody in general to rally around and support this movement, because it is a real situation, right? It's like it's going to be a time where law enforcement could look at you and they're going to group you in, and because you look like the average black person in America, you will be grouped in with us. So your voice is important, because it can happen to you or your people. Unfortunately, also, there are also groups of black immigrants who subscribe. Excuse me, let me say it again. There are also groups of black immigrants who subscribe to white supremacist rhetoric and ideologies and view black Americans as lazy and complainers when they come over to America, right? And they see us standing up against racial oppression here, and they say to themselves, look at those black folks complaining again. Look at them just complaining and whining. Look at them just complaining, right? And they either don't understand or willfully ignore the struggles of American descendants of slaves. And that is not okay, right? That is not okay. You know what I mean? And when I'm listening to what Jonathan Isaac is saying, he could just be trying to hide behind, use religion to cop out, towards talking about racism in America, or he could possibly be subscribing, to what he probably was taught from his grandfather, to stay out of race issues in America. We are glad to be here in America. I'm glad I was able to be here in this country. So don't you say anything about race issues. You act like it don't exist. You act like it's not that big of a deal. Because there are people who subscribe to the rhetoric of, or subscribe to the ideologies of their grandparents, and it's passed down from child to grandchildren. The grandfather taught their children to say, "Hey, don't talk about no black issues in America. Don't talk about no black folks. You ain't one of them really. So let that turn your back against that. Don't talk about that." And those parents taught the same thing to the grandchildren, and those things get passed on. Now, I don't know Jonathan Isaac personally. I don't know his family. I'm just saying these are the possibilities that. This is possibly what could have happened in this situation, right? And I want to tell Mr. Jonathan Isaac, when you say those things, I want you to educate yourself on the history of the descendants of slaves in this country. Educate yourselves before the plight of the black American people, before you say those things, and say it in such a way like he tried to use religion so you wouldn't be able to attack him, to make it seem like it was so acceptable. And let's be real, when he said that, his jersey, when he took that stance and stood up for the anthem, his jersey sales shot up. And the people bought up his jerseys, because there are a lot of people right now. At first, everybody was on board with the Black Lives Matter movement and this fight against police brutality and racism. There are a lot of people who are now pushing back. They're tired of talking about it. They are tired of seeing it in sports, and they want to push back against it. And so his jersey sales shooting up represents the pushback against the Black Lives Matter movement. Or even if you're against the Black Lives Matter, the actual organization, not the term, but even if you're against the organization, there are people who are against black people fighting against police brutality, who are against black people speaking out against racism and prejudices in America. So they came out and support Jonathan Isaac for standing up for the national anthem. Not because, he's a God-fearing man, because they tired of hearing about race in this country. They try to hear about race talk. They don't want to hear about it any longer. They're tired of black people kneeling. They don't want to see their athletes kneeling. So they're proud of him. So now they're going to reward him with high jersey sales. That's really what's going on with that. But anyway, I want to remind Mr. Jonathan Isaac that even if in the event, and I don't know if this is true, even if in the event that he learned to stay out of race issues in America from his maternal grandfather, who is from Puerto Rico, if that is the case, I want him to realize that Puerto Rico has a long history of police brutality. Right? There's a long history of police brutality in Puerto Rico. And allegedly, I'm going to use allegedly because I got these from some articles, some information that I got from articles. There is an article where there was a quote. "We had a case of a Puerto Rican in Caguas who was beaten because he was black. They thought he was Dominican because for the police, there are no black men here. If you're black, it's because you're Dominican." Because unfortunately, the Dominican immigrants into Puerto Rico have been facing pushback from law enforcement. They've not pushed back. They have been subjected to police brutality from police officers, because the Dominicans some of them have very much strong black features, blacker features than some Puerto Ricans in Puerto Rico, and they have a certain negative connotation towards black people in general. And so the police in Puerto Rico there are police brutality. There is police brutality occurring in Puerto Rico, right? And let me just say this too. There are a lot of Puerto Ricans who are are darker than me. They look just like the average American, right? And why? Because there are A lot of the people in Puerto Rico came from Africa, right? And they came and relocated, and they relocated and they reproduced there. And so there are a lot of people, there are a lot of descendants of Africans in Puerto Rico. They just speak Spanish. And, over the years, they speak Spanish, and, they lived there for a long time. So that's their native land now, but they came from Africa. So they look like black people. You know what I mean? So there are black Puerto Ricans. There are also white Puerto Ricans as well. I believe. Yeah. So also, I want to say this. Since 2007, Puerto Rican Police Department, this is all alleged. I got this from a source. Allegedly, since 2007, Puerto Rico Police Department officers have fatally shot, beaten, or tasered unarmed men, the mentally ill, individuals who pose no threat to officers or bystanders, and individuals who have been restrained with less force. Additionally, it says that the article said that the ACLU documented 28 cases in which PRPD, Puerto Rican Police Department officers, are reported to have killed civilians from 2007 to 2011, right? In most of these cases, the deaths were unjustified, avoidable, and or not necessary to protect the life of an officer or civilian. Also, there is a history of excessive force against low-income black Puerto Ricans and Dominican communities in Puerto Rico. It was said that it has been reported that PRPD officers, Puerto Rican Police Department officers assigned to tactical units, regularly use excessive force while on routine patrols and checkpoints in low-income black and Dominican communities. During encounters with civilians in these communities, officers routinely use excessive force or resort to force unnecessarily and inappropriately, and they disproportionately target racial minorities and the poor. So I just want to say this. Jonathan Isaac is a very, very young man. He's 22 years old. He has time to learn and mature from these comments. But in the case that maybe he may be straying away from race talks because, he has a history, his family, his maternal family is from Puerto Rico or whatever, I want him to know that his family can be victims of police brutality and racism in America and in his maternal grandfather's homeland of Puerto Rico. So it is an issue that he should not take lightly or view as minuscule. It is something that he should take extremely seriously. It's something he should take seriously and recognize that it's not just black people just making stuff up. Just things that we just pulling out of thin air. My brother Jonathan Isaac, you are a black man. You look just like me. You look black just like me. People won't know that you're Dominican or whatever, and those issues can affect you, your future children, and your family. It won't be something that is above them or whatever. It's not something that no. You could be a victim of the same things that George Floyd was a victim of. So I don't ride with him using religion as a cop out or anything. I don't ride with him trying to make it seem like it's bigger issues than racism and hey, we gotta look each other in the mirror. We do wrong every day, and it all comes down to whose evil is most visible, brother. I'm not living an evil lifestyle. I'm not out here harming anybody. I'm not out here taking anybody's lives or anything. So you're not going to equate me to the killers of, you're not going to equate the average man to the killers of George Floyd and Breonna Taylor. That's not what you're going to do. I'm not going to let it ride. I'm not going to stand for it. I'm not going to be cool with it. It was cool for you not to stand. It was cool for you not to kneel or whatever. If that's your choice, hey, it is what it is. But for you to make these comments and say all of these things, because I didn't even know he said all of this. I had to look these comments and I had to look these quotes up. For you to say this, it lets me know that you're very, you really don't understand the plight of black Americans, or you're choosing to ignore it. You're young, but I'm going to try to I want him to educate himself on these issues. If he ever stumbles across this video, this is not an attack on you. I'm letting you know you're wrong, and I'm letting you know here's why, and this is an attempt to educate you on the situation. Right now, if I had anything wrong about what's going on in Puerto Rico, any Puerto Ricans want to come up and speak about it, let me know and tell me what I said wrong. I want to let all the the immigrant black people to know I'm not attacking you either. I'm not saying all of you are like that, because I know a lot of black immigrants that come to this country that ride for the black cause every single day. They ride for the cause of black people every single day. But there are a lot that don't, that choose to ignore it, that choose to act like they don't see it for several different reasons. And this is me talking about what I see and what those black immigrants, what I'm giving examples of what happens when some black Americans come to this country, black immigrants come to this country. It's not a way for me to villainize you all. I ride with y'all. I love y'all too. I love everybody. I love everybody, for real, for real. But what I know right from wrong. As a Christian man, all Christians know right from wrong. And you should use your religion to stand up and say, that's not right. That's not right. You're a Christian man. You should know it's not right to kill a person unjustly. It's not right to kill. They killed that man unjustly. They killed other black people unjustly. Alton Sterling, Philando Castile. They killed Eric Garner. All these people were killed unjustly. Sandra Bland. They killed Tamir Rice unjustly. Time and time, all this time again and again and again. So we're not going to act like it's not that big of a deal. It's not, it's not really a big issue, or they act like black people are tripping, or, we could focus our issues. We can focus our efforts on something else. No, we're not going to focus this as something that you feel more comfortable with, that is more digestible to you. No, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to, let's talk about something like world hunger. Like, yeah, that's a problem too. But when they try to bring up world hunger and natural disaster reliefs and stuff like that we have, as they talk about those things in an effort to try to deviate from conversations of race. They want to get away from race talks at all cost. And I'm not going to let that ride. I'm not going to let that happen. So I want Mr. Jonathan Isaac to recognize what was wrong in what he said. If you're really a God-fearing man, you would recognize that is wrong. And you would say it. And say that was wrong. And not general statements like, we all commit sins, or we all do wrong every day, and try to group us in with the murderers of George Floyd and other people who have killed black people unjustly due to acts of racism and police brutality. Don't try to group us, the everyday people, in with that. That ain't cool. Don't group us in with that. That's dumb. Don't put us in with that. That's BS right there. Don't do that. I ain't riding with that at all. That's what he attempted to do. And I feel like that is extremely wrong. And I will never feel like that. I will never say that's cool. But yeah, I want him to understand the error in what he said. Not the error in what he did. You can choose to stand if you want to. Right? Now, again, I wish that brother a speedy recovery. I don't wish no ill will to that. I don't wish no ill will to him. But I want him to know all that can happen to your folks all the time. And I'm really trying not to be too wild, because he's young. He's 22. If he was a grown man, like 30-some years old, talking that talk, y'all would have seen me doing a lot more. Y'all would have seen me a lot more aggravated. I'm still aggravated from what he said. I'm still irritated and aggravated from what he said. It's still reading that pissed me off. I'm gonna be real. It still pissed me off for sure. But I'm trying to. He's a young kid. I'm trying to talk about the error in his ways, and hopefully, if one day he sees it, he'll know, hey, that ain't cool. That ain't cool for you to say what you said. That ain't cool. Don't mask behind. People love running to religion. They love hiding behind God to not talk about racism and try to make racism seem like it's on a small scale. They love doing that. As a God-fearing man, I'm not with none of that at all. I don't stand on none of that. I'm a God-fearing man, but I don't play about that. I don't play them type of games. I'm not no punk to no racism. I'm a Christian, but I'm not a punk. So we're not gonna it's all right and it's okay and we don't have to just handle it. No, brother. No, I'm not handling racism with kitty gloves and trying to push the attention to other issues. I'm not doing that. I'm not having it. I ain't letting it ride. So hopefully he hears. He's getting the backlash from a lot of black folks right now. a lot of black folks is really going at him and saying like, man, the ancestors ain't playing out here. I'm not gonna go there and say, you know, anything like that to the young brother. But it is ironic that after he said these things that happened. It's really crazy. But I'm not gonna tie the two things into each other. I'm not gonna say that this has happened because of that. Things happen on the basketball court, but I want him to recognize that that he has to think about things before he says them, and he has to understand the plight of Black Americans in this country, and this is a very, very serious deal. But again, I wish the brother a speedy recovery. I'm not going, you know, he's already getting a lot of flack from black people. Something about black folks going a little too heinous or whatever. Being a little too, they going very, very heinous. I'm not going to go there because he young. He's very, very young. He's very young. But I'm gonna say this. Again, and I'm choosing, he's young, so I ain't going at him crazy. But I'm definitely letting you know that I don't ride with that. It's not acceptable. It's not cool. I'm not in support of you saying those things at all. Because to me, it look like you're using your religion. You're losing religion to not talk about it. There's a cop out to not talk about it. You're using your religion, or you're using religion as a way to. And I'm not calling anybody that's religion a punk or anything like that. Because I'm a God-fearing man. My family, God-fearing people. Religious as well. But I'm not going to use my religion as a way to punk out from these conversations that need to be had. To punk out from conversations of racism when I know my people needs my voice. Jonathan Isaac is a player in the NBA. Unfortunately, a lot of people in white America view athletes and entertainers as our leaders. So when someone of his ilk, even though he's not a superstar, he had a very good year though. When he says things like that, people latch onto it and say, look at him as a black leader and say, look, he gets it. I said it before, he gets it. He gets what we're trying to say. And they let racism get swept under the rug. And we back to square one with all the issues that we've been facing. What I'm saying to Mr. Jonathan Isaac, watch what you're saying. Please don't set us back. Because we've come a long way. We had a lot of conversations have changed and built up from how they used to be, and a lot of uncomfortable conversations are now being had. So don't set us back at all. Peace.